Hello and welcome to this third edition of the Railway Monthly. Yep, we're still here, but we just need a few more people to sign up to make us truly, truly great. Around about 10,000 would do it, so spread the word, please. Okay, in the last edition of the Railway Monthly, we showed you this. Okay, a shot of me stood in the middle of a railway as a locomotive approaches. Not very clever. Well, it was clever as a televisual trick. We used a telephoto lens, and in fact, we weren't on the same track as the locomotive. But not a good idea to show that sort of thing to impressionable young children, is it? Especially you, Michael, in Darlington. Do not go and stand in the middle of railway tracks. Pendolino moves a lot faster than that locomotive. You can never be sure. Keep away from them, all right? On a cheerier note, in this edition, what have we got for you? Well, we've got the Bure Valley Railway, 9 miles in beautiful East Anglia. We visit the Bodmin and Wentford line in Cornwall. John Collins gets to grips with the Thumpers on the Watercress line. And Jennifer Johnston fires a B12 on the North Norfolk Railway. It's a stunner, and so, many would say, is she. Enjoy.
Now, don't get me wrong, I really enjoyed doing the Trevithick story. It was great, and getting up to Glasgow, my hometown, to do the Glasgow subway piece, that was fantastic. But you know, I really wanted to get my hands dirty, so I put in a request. I couldn't believe it. I'm getting to do it today. I'm firing this engine with Ian and George there on the North Norfolk Railway. Pity about the 6 o'clock start though.
What we're going to do now, the grate is clean. There's a bit of an old warming fire in the back which we're going to leave in because there's no point in taking it out. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show Jenny how to light this. We've got to line the box both sides, layer across the front, the layer across the back. We then put in some old rag which we've got in a bucket. If we put it up there, and then we'll put some wood on top of, set fire to it and put some wood on top of that.
Okay, bang in the middle. That wasn't what you wanted me to do.
That's it. As far as this engine goes, it's the most difficult engine to fire, to get the coal to the front.
So why is that? Why is it the most difficult
Because it's
one?
a bit upside down, this, a bit back to front. Most have a sloping grate that we can fill the back and it will rock down to the front. This one has a flat grate for 2/3 of its length, and then the front slopes
then
down. So you've got to throw the coal to the front because it won't go down on its
Right,
own.
go on then. There's one big one first.
Just drop it just inside the door.
Oh, so I'm not flinging it to the back then?
No, just drop it inside the door. That's it. Okay, carry on. That one you can try and push down the front.
Right, okay, so I'm going to chuck this one.
No, nice one.
Oh, not bad. Sure that hit the end.
Yeah, try again.
So it's up.
Right, now the next job is to throw these rags, which are soaked in paraffin, along the length of the box where you can't see any coal. Would you like to have a go at that?
How many rags are
There's about 4 or 5 in there.
Do you want to do one first and then I'll
Alright.
follow you?
So what? Just try it through the middle there, you do the same.
Right. George, can I swap sides with you so that I can use my right hand?
Yeah, sure. It's a good job you're right-handed actually, because you'd have found this engine very difficult to left-handed.
Why is that?
Well, you've had to fire the other way with the other hand and the shovel all the way round. So
Oh, okay. Right, here we go.
that's it. Okay, now just a bit just behind where you threw that bit.
Right, you mean further through?
No, this is the back.
Side.
This
This
is
side,
the back.
so at the back.
If I talk
Back,
of
not
behind and in front.
Okay. Right, so I'm just...
Okay. And the one just in front of the one you just thrown.
Right, okay.
Okay.
Wow!
Mind yourself.
Oh, right, where do you want me to...
That's all right. Yeah, okay. Now, we'll put that right down the front. See how the whole middle of the fire has caught fire? Put that into the front. Now what we do is throw all this wood
Is this a job that needs to be done quickly, or
It needs to be done,
is this-
all
is
of this
this
job needs to be done as quickly
Right, okay.
as possible.
Right, okay. This is squares, isn't it?
Yeah. Be careful with that. That's what I was just about to warn you of that. Watch you don't hit the fire on door, because it takes lumps out of your hand if you're not careful. Are you alright?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So George has left me cleaning while he goes to get a bucket of water, and it's left me wondering why I got this job. So apparently the cleaning job is like the lowest rung of the ladder on the hierarchy of sort of fireman and driver, etc. And can't really see like Mark or John doing this. Can you? So George, what's the purpose of cleaning up before we go, as opposed to
Well,
the
to
end of the
make
day?
it-
Is it a taking pride
Well, you're going to
issue?
yeah,
or
well, you're going
just-
to live here for the day,
Yeah.
so you wouldn't want to live in a grotty lounge, which is
Does it
it's
just not
exactly
get
the
dirty
same.
as you go anyway?
No, you're going to keep it clean during the day.
Right. Oh, is that all part of
Yeah.
my job as the
That's
cleaner
all.
environment?
It's all part of all our jobs to
Okay.
look after it. Because once you've got
Okay.
it clean, it's not going to get that dirty if you don't drop coal all over the floor. So this is a mixture of oil and paraffin. About 25% oil, 75% paraffin. And it's used just for cleaning the cab in general. Squeeze it out as hard as you can. Start with a bit. Then just rub it all over. As you can see, that needle's already started to go up here. This one here, see the one that's showing 30 pounds a square inch?
Sure. Where do you need to get to, George?
Well, way up near the red line.
red,
about
so that's your target
150,
then?
60, 70.
And is that before we go anywhere? It's got to get to
No,
that.
no, we can go on 60 pounds.
Yeah?
So you're going to do this full time now, are you, Jenny?
Oh yes, you know, I've been looking for that perfect change of career, and I reckon by the end of the day I'll know exactly what it is.
That's it. Make sure the whole of the coal gets wet right over the back.
George, what's the reason for wetting the coal?
Wetting the coal, but it's covered in dust. Oh, look. Yep, it's covered in dust. And if when we go backwards, the wind will blow it all over you, and it's like being grip blasted.
That's it?
Yeah, it's that simple. Would you like to turn that off? Clockwise. That's it. Right down and push it down hard. That's it. Now if you turn that wheel clockwise off till it goes stop, that's it, and then close that so as it's pointing it there. Everything on steam engines is heavy and hard.
Yeah.
Oh, well done.
So that's it.
That's it. And just look down and make sure the water stops running.
It's stopped.
It's stopped, good. Because the last thing you want to do is forget to do that and empty your tender, because then you've got real problems.
Another one under it.
Ah, that's interesting.
The yard's actually in it.
Chuck that out there for a minute.
Is that red hot?
That's the underside of your fire
Is
up.
that what you brought, the grate you just brought out? Is that red hot?
It's warm.
It's just warm.
It's warm.
You're giving me this one to clean out?
Yes, why not?
Hold the pipe up, aim it into the pan, then you won't soak the coal. Right. And I'll turn the water on. Aim at the back.
I'll be frightened of it. Okay, I'll turn the water off and then with the rake that out.
Right, now I'm getting dirty.
But I mean, you don't have to get every last lump because before you finish, some more's fallen in it. Throw the rake down on the floor down there.
Breakfast on the shovel.
It's done, but it's not done that regularly because normally in traffic there isn't time to do it. It's only when you're sitting around in sidings or maybe on gala days when you're parked at the end of the platform, you've got time to do it. So I have done it before, 2 or 3 times, but not recently.
Do you come prepared just in case you've got time to do it, like a wee pack of sausages?
No. You know when you're going to have time to do it.
Breakfast on the shovel. You know, my dad always told me about this, but I have to see it for myself. It smells delicious. Absolutely delicious. Do you want a bit?
Oh, okay. No. Now, there's not much for us to do for a while. We've just got to let the fire settle down.
George, on this particular route, there's quite a few different gradients.
Oh yes, we're going slightly on a very shallow falling gradient at the moment. As we turn the corner, we'll start to go up in about 100, I think it's about 165. Yeah. We'll have a look as we go past the post.
What does that mean for the engine though?
That means it's got to work harder to get up there. Yeah, because it's lifting a load up a hill. Like a car going up a hill, you have to put more on the pedal.
So do you need to keep an eye on the fire during that hard work, if we can call it that?
As we get to the top of this gradient, we will fire around that box again. I'll do the front, and I'll let you do the back, all right? That's as we approach the top.
I'm kind of hoping that by the end of today, I'll be getting that coal right down the front.
Oh, I hope so, yeah.
That's my goal.
Yeah, it's 1 in 97 going up here now.
1 in what?
97. So it's quite steep. Our pressure's staying fairly steady. Whistle board coming up, and there's an occupation crossing goes across the line just up here, so he'll be whistling up again in a minute. When he whistles up, that's the time to start firing. So, okay. I've wanted to do ever since I was a small boy. So I was brought up on a railway family, so I've always known about steam engines. I was a great keen spotter when I was a boy, and I was very disappointed to see all the engines go, or I'd have wanted to go and be a premier apprentice at one of the railway works and be an engine designer. But I've always really wanted to drive and fire them, and when I got the opportunity, I thought I'll go and try it, loved it, and I've been doing it ever since, 15 years.
15 years. So I was going to say, it wasn't exactly like a childhood thing as such. Your experience only started.
That's what really took off. Oh no, but I've always loved steam engines. The seed was there, that was just the catalyst that fired it off. Yeah.
There is a technique for everything at Well Riding on the Local. George has even got a technique for standing on the footplate. So George, tell me about
Whenever you're standing on a footplate, stand with your legs apart, then you get the rhythm of the engine. You don't go off balance. You stand like that. It's very you try it. It's very difficult to stay upright, but like that, it's much more steady.
So you just sort of sway with it.
Even when you're shoveling coal, now you wish it left it turned off, don't you? Okay, we're approaching the station now. Well, we've arrived with the same amount of pressure we left with. So what we've got to do now is turn the injector on to stop it rising any further. Now have a look in the fire.
It is raging. The fire is raging, and I'm not kidding, the heat is almost unbearable. And apparently it's going to get hotter.
See what the engine's done? It's ripped all of the coal out of the middle ground and thrown it up the front. As you're going round this curve now, the driver can't see where you're going. So it's an inside corner, and you're his eyes. You're looking for people on the line, any other obstructions, and you wouldn't fire on an inside curve, or only on an outside one where he can see what's going on. Also, you're looking for the signals as well.
See, to me, being like a layperson, I suppose, like watching you guys do this, you know, Ian driving and you doing your firing up, I know it comes naturally to you guys because you've been doing it for a while and you've spent years
It only
training.
becomes natural because you've done it for such a long while, yes, and it's second nature now.
I mean, The analogy with learning to drive a car, I mean, is it really that kind of thing?
Well, it's similar to that. I mean, when you first drive a car, everything seems to happen so quickly, you don't feel part of the car. But now when you sit in the car, you feel part of it. Well, exactly the same thing happens here after a period of time. And you know after a while what that fire wants. You can look in there and see just where to put the coal, even when it's going flat out. You see these very little hot white bits coming up where all the air's coming through, so you throw some coal on that.
It's quite sensitive, really.
Oh, it's very sensitive.
Isn't it?
It's got to go in the right place. If you've got a big hole in the fire, it won't steam. So you've got to find that hole. I find the best way is just to put a round around the box. And if you haven't found it then you've got a serious problem.
What I'm realising, being in here with you and working with you on the local and being on the footplate, it's actually like, it's just kind of like one of us, really. It's like a big, sort of friendly, breathing beast. I mean, it is like, it is alive.
It's very alive, much more than a diesel engine. If you ever go on a diesel engine, you don't get the same feeling of an alive creature, living, breathing, fire in its belly, steam and smoke at the chimney, and yeah, it's very much that. And all the moving bits as well. When you look around inside the works, it's very much like that.
I suppose like any experience, I could never really have imagined what it would be like to do this today. Like any experience, you've got to experience it basically. And it's been quite overwhelming. I mean,
yes, the first few times you do it, you wonder if you're ever going to be able to do it properly. But you will, given practice, and it is all practice and a lot of practice.
and look, we've been up and down this track, and this is still looking pretty clean.
I did brush it down once. Well, I did say I wanted to see it stay clean, and it's stayed reasonably clean, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's still pretty shiny.
Yeah.
So guys, listen, thank you so much. I've had one of the best experiences of my life. I really have.
not often that we start our stories on the Railway Monthly without knowing what the ending is, but it's certainly the case this time. The Weardale Railway plans to open on Saturday. It's now Wednesday and work's still in progress. And the railway inspector's coming tomorrow. Blimey, this is going to be tight.
We've got quite a few physical things like to put tarmac on and stuff like that, and every station there's a bit of work to be done. There's also one or two slightly more critical things. We've got to convince the HMRI that we've got our level crossing sorted out, and we've got a crossing with some lights that it's going to be re-inspected tomorrow. And we've got a little bit of extra track work to do, but as you may have seen, there is in fact a tamper on here at the moment doing the final track adjustments.
So I take it you're pretty confident you're going to get there?
I'm 99.99% certain, and I've got everything crossed when I say that.
Okay, well, how did we get to this stage, Steve? What's special about the Weardale Railway?
The initial plans were to try and reopen the railway as a commuter line, and we actually got right through the stages with the SRA. We got pre-qualification. We proved we needed a fairly modest subsidy because we were going to run heritage trains at a weekend, and therefore on average it would have been a lot lower subsidy than most other UK rural lines. But of course, with all the problems of Network Rail, the SRA basically went out of that game and said, sorry, we're not providing any more RPP grants, and therefore we had to look at another tactic. Early last year we decided that the way to go was to be a full heritage railway and to do it as a steam railway as much as possible, because we realised that's what made the difference. That's what brings the people along. And so that was the tactic. So in the middle of last year we decided that we'd go for a heritage railway service and we would start applying for grants. And with being a heritage railway, of course, it allows us to go for the heritage lottery funding. We also were able, of course, to maximise the idea of tourism. And so that appealed to the Regional Development Agency, because the job losses in the area were very bad. Perhaps it might not look like it when you see the beautiful valley, but this is actually the poorest rural district in England. It has all of the usual problems that you expect with a poor area: high unemployment, poor health, etc., etc. And so it meant we were also able to appeal to government redevelopment money to basically try and improve the local economy. And that, I think, was the real key, that we could get heritage lottery funding and we could get money to help improve the local economy. And we're hoping to bring 90,000 visitors a year into the valley, and that should bring about £3 million of revenue to all of the shops and the other tourist attractions in the valley.
Well, obviously the Weardale Railway has a very bright future in front of it. It's got the support of the councils and what have you. It can bring a lot of money into this, but just right now we just want to see some tarmac down, don't we? We just want to see things tidied up, and we just want Saturday morning to come around really quickly, I guess.
That is the most important thing. We've still, as you can see, quite a lot of work to do. Certain of the things have got to be finished by tomorrow lunchtime, because we've got the HMRI back to do the final once over, and then there are other things like painting and stuff that we've still got to finish, but we'll do it. We'll be there for 10:15 on Saturday morning.
Well, did the railway manage to pull it off? Did the inspector come along and say, yeah, okay? Yeah, it did actually. We've got ourselves a brand new heritage line.
Today marks the first stage of a 5-year project to reopen the line from Eastgate through Stanhope to Bishop Auckland, and hence connect with the main line at Darlington. Today you will see the first 5 miles of the 19 miles of line, and 3 of the 9 stations we will eventually build and link together. This is a major independent railway project, and when completed it will place the Weardale Railway as one of the 3 longest privately owned and operated railways in the country. We also aim in time to make it not just one of the best, but the best. It has taken 10 years of hopes and disappointments to reach this point. This with a dedicated band of volunteers, and over the last 2 years a growing number of full-time staff.
So on behalf of all of you gathered here today, I want to say thank you to the people who have got us to this day, all of you, but also with enormous pride say the Weardale Railway is now open.
Steve, the other day, Wednesday afternoon, it didn't seem possible, but you've pulled it off.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to admit, even I was nervous. I had to say that we were definitely going to pull it off, but I had my own doubts. In the end, we got there, we made it, and it's just absolutely fantastic.
I mean, I guess the railway inspector must have been amazed as well, wasn't he?
He was actually quite surprised. I mean, we got quite a long list, nothing too technical to be done, but a long list of things. He gave us the maximum time he could. He gave us 3.5 days. He came back, and we finished it.
Great. Well, I'm looking forward to the future years of the Weir Dale. What's next on the list?
Well, next on the list is we've got to actually start work on moving up to Eastgate, which is about another nearly 2 miles of track to be cleared, and we've got to build a station in the Eastgate complex as well. So that has to be done. That's 2005. While we're doing that, we're actually going to start on the 2006 project as well, which is to get back to Bishop Auckland, because that's a very long stretch of line. So we'll actually start doing that probably in the spring of next year.
OK, well, congratulations, Steve, and we look forward to following your progress.
Lovely, thank you very much. Yeah, cheers.
OK, now every railway has got its own unique selling point, and the Weir Dale Railway is no exception. How about this for a loco shed?
This was the original law shop that was used by Charles Atwoods to the start for machining different components, and also mainly for making gun barrels for warships.
OK, so this basically was the original foundry here in the valley, was it?
Yes, this was the original foundry in the valley.
From which the rest of the steelworks here sprung up. Yeah. OK, so how did the railway come to acquire it? How did you get to end up putting trains inside?
Well, originally back in '93 we were donated 2 diesel shunders from the Dormill Colliery. We needed somewhere to store them, so we asked the steelworks originally if we could use the bottom of the site just to store the 2 diesel shunders, which we did, and then from there it's just grown from there. It's quite a bit of work to do to it. The main big problem is the roof, which is asbestos, which is going to have to be removed because it's all in poor condition, which is going to be one of the biggest costs.
OK, well, let's have a look at what you've actually got in here at the moment that you've managed to get in. Let's start down at the far end from where we're talking, and you've got a cement wagon there.
Yes, we've got cement wagons down there, which is just used as a stores at the moment, which we are going to renovate, which was donated by Blue Circle from Buxton, it's in fair condition, but it wants quite a bit of work, but eventually we will do it.
You've got a flat wagon as well, did I notice out on the way in?
Yes, there's a flat wagon that we rescued from Ellington Colliery when Ellington Colliery was threatened with closure. We managed to rescue the wagon, and we've renovated that one. That one's done. It's ready to roll.
There's a bit of a family connection here, isn't there? But 2 of your sons, or is it both your sons work here, don't they?
No, one works. My oldest son, Paul, he's health and safety officer for the railway.
Right.
And my other son, Stephen, he's one of the volunteer team leaders who's on renovating the Bose LMS brake van.
Right, we're looking at that. That's on loan from Bose, isn't it, to you? I mean, that's quite a good deal for them, isn't it? They loan you a rusty old shell and you renovate it for them. How does that work out?
I think at the end of the day, the Bose can't use it on their line because it's too long a wheelbase. So I think the brake van especially will stop on the Weir Dale Railway.
It's basically going to be a
Yeah. We'll just renew the lease as we go on, and we'll keep it here and use it.
The NCB loco next to it, that's Bose as well?
Yes, the Norwood, which used to belong to the Norwood Coke Company. That's on loan from Bose as well.
I'm presuming that's too long a wheelbase as well, is it?
Yes, it's too tight for their curves.
What state's a loco in? Is there much work to be done on that?
It wants a full mechanical overhaul, but we've had a boiler inspection on it and it's not as bad as they made out. So now we're just going into getting a quote for the work to be done. We're going to send it out and have it done.
We've got a Mark 1 carriage, isn't there? That's from the North Yorkshire
Moors. That's ex-North Yorkshire Moors railway coach.
Cosmetically looks rough, but you're saying not too bad, really?
No, it's not as bad as what people make out. You know, it's like everything else. It's just a cover over the top. You know, there's bits want replacing, which we'll do, and a coat of paint, and it'll look as good as new. This is mechanical work to do underneath as well, but as far as the top end goes, it's not too bad.
I notice you've got a couple of paces here, haven't you? You've got one that's outside, painted up in the original Weardale Railway colours from the 18 whatever it was, and one that is more familiar in the red and white, sort of PTE colours, isn't it? That's not very nice, really. What are you keeping that one for?
The one that's inside, that's just going to be a source of space for the two that we have got running.
Right.
Because as far as 141s, there's not many of them left because most of them went abroad.
Yeah.
So there's very few spares left in this country.
I suppose, unloved though they are, they're an integral part of our heritage, aren't they? And I bet they're very useful for you on a railway like this, aren't
Oh
they?
yes, well they've been out on the line already, you know, carrying the Railway Inspectorate, and we had a couple of test runs with it. It's proved to be all right.
There we go, what a fantastic shed, eh? Not open to the public just yet, that'll come in around about 2 years' time, I reckon, but you can be sure the Railway Monthly cameras will be there to capture it. If you want to find out more about the Weardale Railway, join us online at www.therailwaymonthly.com.
Most of the southern region had been electrified by 1937, but there were still some lines that weren't. And it wasn't until 20 years later that technology caught up and they were able to put small, powerful diesel-electric units into trains like these, the Thumpers.
As a small child, I used to travel on them quite a lot, out of Portsmouth, coming up to Southampton and Eastleigh. But certainly some of the locals, I think, will be pleased to hear it come back. And when we repaint it green and get it back to its original livery, I think there'll be quite a few nostalgia and memory trips going back with some of the...
The Thumpers first appeared as the 201, with a narrow body to allow them to run through a rather tight-fitting tunnel on the Hastings line. A year later, construction began on the Class 205s, which were to run on the non-electrified lines in Hampshire and Berkshire. Why choose diesel electrics and not mechanicals like the Heritage DMUs?
The Southern went for diesel electrics, I think, because they had some familiarisation with diesel electric locomotives, whereas the Western went for hydraulics. Southern plumped for the diesel electrics because they had experience in that form of power. So yeah, maybe it was a sort of afterthought, but here we are 40 plus years later and they're still running. They were a superb design out of Eastleigh. 205 units are dubbed Hampshire units. They were built back in 1957 for non-electrified lines in the Hampshire area. Engine block is above the floor in part of the coach, whereas the mechanicals have the engines underneath the floors. Half of the first coach is taken up with the engine and the guards compartments. An English electric diesel engine which drives the generator, producing electricity, which is then fed down to the traction motors under the wheels. Obviously all the additional multiple unit controls as well, so you can string them together up to 3, 4, 6 cars. Very basic, very simple, fairly easy to maintain. Power output, I think they're 600 horsepower engines. In fact, the same engines are carried in the Class 73 electro diesels as well. So 600 horsepower, which is plenty enough to pull 2 or 3 cars along. Really good to drive, really feel like you're driving something as well. Really good fun, yeah.
One man who is delighted to have a 205 unit back on the Watercress line is Chris Cornell. Now he's the Chief Coordinator and Archivist for the Midhants Railway.
Our particular unit, which is 1125, was one of the second batch built in 1959. Originally with 2 cars, but they then subsequently introduced a third car. By then the service was quite popular. In this particular area, the service, which was Southampton to Alton, you had a service that was running hourly as opposed to the previous 2-hourly service. So it improved the service and they became more popular.
Some people assume that the Thumpers are dual power like the Class 73. Not so. They were designed specifically for the non-electrified lines. Midhants Railway is only one of the lucky recipients of a Thumper. New homes are being found all over Britain at heritage railways. We'll keep an eye on where they go. The Midhants line has some steep inclines, which can cause problems for underpowered trains.
They tended to slip and slide and didn't always make it to the top. Initially they actually took the third car out, so they ran them as a 2-car. In fact, they re-geared quite a lot of them to give the better performance, but a lot did remain with just the 2 cars only. In fact, that was what was used on this line on a regular basis. The last day was in February 1973. On the Sunday of the last weekend, 1125 was coupled to 1121, which is one of the 2 cars. It ran about 3 or 4 round trips between Alton and Southampton on the very last day.
Sound of the engine, hearing it working, especially when they're slogging up the bank, they sound really good and really feel like they're going somewhere. They are part of the heritage of the line, and that's what we're trying to do here at the Midhants. We're trying to recreate the past, and these were part of the history of the line, so it's particularly suitable for this line.
And if you're worried because we haven't had a proper look at the Midhants Railway, don't be. We're coming back later in the year. Don't forget, you can find out more about any of our featured stories on our website, www.therailwaymonthly.com.
I know these trains aren't as glamorous as your Deltics or your Peaks or your Great Westerns, but I think 40 years in service makes these trains worth preserving.
People ask me, what qualifications does one need to have to become a railway chaplain? I very much wanted to make sure to do what the Lord wanted me to do. My name is Humphrey Gillett, and I'm a railway mission chaplain. In essence, a railway chaplain is pastor to railway people. I went to Bible college, and really and truly with my experience of life generally, both from social life, my banking career, my career with the mission agency, courses that I've been on for all different things from Christian courses to management courses, etc. My life's experience has gone towards the qualifications to become a railway chaplain.
How are you? Very well, yourself? Good to see you. Oh, nice to see you again. And you? So, just visiting here today, come say hi to one or two folk, see how they are. Very well. And also hello there. The mission itself was founded in 1881 and was founded by Christian men and women together with the executives, directors of railway companies who wanted to care for the physical and spiritual well-being of railway workers. And so chapels, railway chapels, were built in main railway areas such as York and Manchester and Derby and Crewe. There were a lot of ministers around the country, each with their church, ministering to the railway people. And it wasn't until around about 1970 we were the first chaplain appointed who was not actually chapel based. Just to say that I mentioned last week, thank you for your prayers. Last week I went. He looked after an area of railway, and so it's exactly the same with the chaplains now. We look after an area of railway and the railway people in it, of course, and also passengers as and when necessary. Some are full-time, some are part-time, some are voluntary, some are ordained, some are lay. People should see us as something distinctive. Sometimes the gospel causes offence. In ourselves, we are meant to be salt and light. The chaplains today, there are 16 of us around the country, Scotland, England and Wales, and we endeavour to have a pastoral concern for all railway people, whoever they may be, whether it be managers and executive through to station staff, train staff, engineering staff, right the way through. Anybody who works on the railway come under our pastoral care. On a daily basis, I visit people on stations, signal boxes, railway installations of all sorts. To me, it's a great show. I thoroughly enjoy talking to them, getting to know their craft, allowing them to get to know me,
and should they need a confidential ear at any time, maybe they haven't got a close colleague they would want to talk to, or say a church minister or friend or member of the family, I and the other railway chaplains are there for them to come and have a confidential talk to at any time. Driving trains and being a guard is a very exacting job and a very demanding role. Going to railwaymen in their restrooms, I respect the fact that they're there to rest. Travelling down, I enjoy coming up to Bletchley. There's always interesting folk to see. And I buy and read railway magazines, and when I read them, I like to share them out with people, and perhaps I might take them into a restroom and share them round, and then that'll start a conversation which might not happen otherwise. And today, of course, we went from Berkhamsted down to Harran Wealdstone. Not so long ago, they had their second suicide in about 6 months, which shook some of the staff up. Today's visit was a pastoral visit to see how the staff were in the aftermath of the tragedy of the 2 suicides, particularly the last one. Maggie, how are you?
Hello, Humphrey, nice
Good to see you too. Lovely. The last time I came here, it was fairly soon after the suicide.
2 staff have had counselling. One reacted better than the other one, but I think we're fine. Everybody seems to be settled down.
You're saying, you know, if it happens again, he may be prepared or what have you. At least you could argue he's actually seen the scene.
He was a doctor, wasn't he?
He was, yes. Watford, much loved man. We have a non-executive committee. We have a chairman, vice chairman and committee. Men who have worked on the railway and in many different areas of the railway, as it were, bringing in a wide experience to the mission. We have an executive director, and then we now have 16 chaplains. We've just had one more appointed for the north of Scotland. The funds for the railway mission come from church groups, individuals, and also to a very large extent now the train operating companies themselves are providing funds to enable us to carry out the work that we do. And certainly our profile, it's sad that it has actually happened in this way, but our profile has been raised in the last few years over the tragedies that have been really since Ladbroke Grove. And my senior colleague, he had a presence at each of the 4 tragedies after Ladbroke Grove, Hatfield and Great Heck and Potter's Bar, which certainly raised the profile of the mission and showed the railway companies the value of the railway chaplaincy.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I'll see you again. Bye.
The 11:45 Virgin train service to Wolverhampton, now ready for boarding at platform 6. Calling out.
Sid, how are you? Lovely to see you. How are things today?
I've had a love of railways literally since the pram, my mother's side of the family. Literally since the pram, my mother's side of the family. Great grandfather, he was a railway engineer, wrote railway novels and railway engineering books in the Victorian era. My grandparents used to take my brother and myself up to the railway at Northwood, Middlesex, on the GC and Met joint out of Marylebone, and it was really our third home after ours. My grandparents, the station was our third home.
In 1834, a railway was built to convey sea sand for the farmers on Bodmin Moor. We had the Southern Railway around Weybridge and the Great Western Railway coming in from Bodmin Road into Bodmin General. One of the earliest railways in this country. We're running a heritage railway here. We have been for almost 20 years now. It is extremely popular and successful. We are trying to portray the steam railway way back in the 50s and 60s. People love nostalgia, and we're trying to make that atmosphere not only on the train and on the locomotives that we use, but also the whole product. So when they come into the station building here at Bodmin General, there's the old type booking hall with the booking hatch issuing the old card tickets. The buffet itself has some nice old pictures and a really nice old atmosphere. They go in the waiting room, there's the old coal fire there which is lit in the winter. So it's the whole atmosphere, I believe, of preserved railways, or heritage railways shall I call that.
Oh, look, there's a fire.
All the passenger services in the area had been withdrawn by the mid-1960s. China Clay Traffic continued to run until 1983. The last of the China Clay Traffic trains ran from Wentford Bridge down to Bodmin Road and onto the coast at Foy. So in 1983 everything had closed up. Fortunately, The station building here at Bodmin General, which was built in 1887, is still with us, as is also the main tracks. The tracks were left in situ all the way through to Boscawen Junction. So in 1986, when the Preservation Society came along, they were able to start refettling initially just a short section of line here at Bodmin General, and then in 1990 reopened to Bodmin Road, now called Bodmin Parkway, and in 1996 reopened to Boscawen Junction. That gives us 6.5 miles of running railway.
Don't speak too quick. Underneath? Yeah, all right.
We have a living steam museum here. In our main shed we have the Southern Railway West Country locomotive, Wadebridge, undergoing restoration. We are hoping that it will be steamed again by the end of next year, possibly into 2006.
These Barry restorations are a tremendous test of patience, skill, time, and you're basically having to replace the spokes of the wheel that was originally invented. It can be frustrating. It was derelict. I mean, it had been stripped at Barry, partly stripped at Barry, and obviously one side had suffered from the salt air environment, very, very rusty. We've got 90% of all the components now. We're actually erecting the engine as we speak now. Ongoing pipe work is being completed. We've got the valve gear to assemble. We've got all the motion, the rods, and the original chain drive, the chain for the chain drive, is actually being made in America now as I speak. The engine has got a local connection, having been named in Wadebridge itself in 1945. And it spent the first 5 years of its life based at Exmouth Junction. It ran the North Cornwall line, the Atlantic Coast Express. It was the first West Country to work to Plymouth in 1946. I remember them as a youngster running around Plymouth. I travelled to Tavistock behind one. Always remember that. Getting char in my eye and stuff, but I just carried on looking out. Always remember it going through Shillermill Tunnel near Tavistock. Yeah, it's just, they did something for me, impressed me as a youngster. I'd stand North Road Station and watch them for hours.
Recently we repaired our Great Western Railway Prairie locomotive 5552 and also our GWR Pannier tank engine number 4612. That really has put us on the map as being an extra interest for people to come and visit us. Normally steam trains start running at about 11:30 in the morning. We run diesels on most Saturdays. Gives a bit of variety. There are some people out there who like diesels, and we have some diesels here as well as steam engines. For the record, there are 3 main diesel engines. We have a Class 50 Triumph, Class 20 River Foy, and a Class 33, and 2 diesel shunting engines. The China clay traffic was in little 4-wheel wagons, hauled up until the early 1960s by the BT Well tank. BT Well tank number 30587 is sizzling in the background. That was built in 1874 and is still steaming today.
Well, I rode on in 1949 on the Wadebridge yard. Yard. Then we used to go down on the Wemford with it, And then normally it was a pass man on the Wentford, and then we used to go on the Bodmin like. But spent a lot of time on this on the yard. If you was a cleaner like or a pass cleaner.
I think Ryan himself came together on these locomotives in '62 when I got made like a pass cleaner and Roy was a pass fireman, and so you come together on the yard.
There we go, going a bit further in. Go going a bit further, Rachel.
It was with a saddened heart that I had to finish. And this is all I ever wanted to do. There you go, and I cannot believe that I'm back on it again now. I'm very privileged.
I'll do it once this side. Right there.
Oh, no.
To the Euro? You're welcome.
Our future aspirations at the moment, preparing drawings for the construction of a historic vehicle restoration depot at our Walker Line siding, which is about a mile out of Bodmin, and that will incorporate 2 sidings with coaches undergoing restoration. That would be a major addition to the railway. Extending the line from Boscawen Junction, which is actually in the middle of nowhere, to somewhere, and that would be Weybridge. Putting a track back to the original line in the area, built in 1834. It's really going to be such an extra asset to North Cornwall, this area of North Cornwall, and will open up the fact of maybe some commuter traffic as well, taking it off the roads between Weybridge and Bodmin and the main line railway, as well as the steam trains. So I think really it's good for the area, good for North Cornwall, and of course good for the railway.
To me, a railway should be in a garden. The garden, to me, is the natural place. We didn't plan it exactly as you can see it. It just happened. My name is Paul Barnard. Welcome to Dawes Heath Garden Railway. I was about 10 years old, I think it was, and I started getting interested. A chap over the road to me, he'd just left school, and he brought the Hornby 3 Rail 00 train set. And he says, come and have a look at this, Paul. I started in this area here where you can see the wall. I built the wall across, dug a pond out, built the bridge over there, a walkover bridge. I see that in a book and I liked it, so I'm going to build that. Plus I made all my own bricks. I had a brick mould. I didn't exactly have a drawing for the railway. I just started to build it and it just come to me. I started on the basic with 2 tracks, as I said before, then I went to 3 tracks. Friends used to come round and say, Paul, can't we have more tracks? After about 2 years, I thought, well, I can expand over the fish pond. I thought, well, how do I do this? I thought 2 Hornby suspension bridges bolted together, which was aluminium underneath, so it's bolted, it's quite rigid. And at the time, I wanted square guttering, but you couldn't get the size of the stanchions. So what I've done, I cut it in half and bolted it together so I've got the right width. Filled them with concrete, made a hole in the pond. I like the view up the other end of the garden when you're looking across the suspension bridges. When the locos come across there on coaches, to me it looks nice. I was born up in the early 40s, BR, I like LNER. I like most regions actually, even diesels as well. With the steam loco, you're driving it. It's not like an electric loco. You can't just stop it. I've only had it out 4 times. When I first got it, I tried it and I got 1.5 laps out of it. And I thought, well, the only way out of this, I was told, is to put extra feeds in. So I put an extra 6 feeds in, and I got 16 circuits out of it, and it ran for at least 25 minutes. I don't get on the wrong side of the wife by having it like it is now. There's not a real future plan, it's just to keep the garden nice.
I'm Bob Newman. This is my garden train set. Started to build it in the year 2001, and this is the stage I've got to. Not finished, they never are finished. The construction is based at 18 inches high. It is on with 38mm thick scaffold boards joined together on their edges. The uprights are 3-inch square drain piping, plastic drain piping, which is filled with concrete with one centre reinforcing rod. The main station on this line, the Have Hunt, is the later name for Havant. The platforms are made of concrete, as before, covered in roofing felt, stays out all the year round, is completely weatherproof. This is a freelance girder bridge. made from aluminium, angle and channel and bolted together with 200 nuts and bolts in that. The engine going around now is Cyril. Diesel, all steel construction, built in Wales. Cyril will go for 3.5 hours on one charge of its batteries, and it takes 16 hours to charge up from nil. It will be converted to metal hydride batteries instead of NiCads, which will give a longer run and less time to charge. This is an 060 side tank locomotive, live steam, radio controlled, 40 megahertz, built in Doncaster by a firm called Roundhouse. It's butane gas fired. We have a gas butane tank here which we fill, water filled under the dome. We have a displacement lubricator here on this side which is filled and lift the roof, fill down from there. Pressure gauge, safety valve which blows off at 40 psi.
The whole purpose of the railway is to give enjoyment to other people. My name's Mike Dunkley and this is my garden railway. We call it the Mendrum Creek Light Railway after a local creek in the area in which I live on Hayling Island. The railway started originally as a little electric railway just running up and down the garden. The railway here is now in its 14th year and has grown to the point we now have something in the order of 470 feet of track and something in the order of about 11 locomotives, 9 of which are actually steam locomotives, 4 of which are radio controlled. 90% of these are either kit built or what we call scratch built. Some are made from plastic, but the greater majority are actually made from wood. The 3 lines that you can see at the rear of the pond are the lower one, which comes from Lakeside Station down on an incline of 40 to 1 and passes underneath the road bridge, through and underneath the existing station, out, around, on its way to Ayling Holt. The second line we can see is what we term the high level line. Now this comes from behind the actual pub through a set of points and it's divided in and it goes into a tunnel. Inside the tunnel at the back there is an actual crossover. Well, this is the latest addition loco to the railway. It's manufactured by Roundhouse Engineering at Doncaster. It's called a Lady Anne class, although we've named it Katie Erin after one of my granddaughters. It's basically an 060 steam locomotive. Switch it on. And it's radio controlled. We test that the motions are working. And reverse, throttle, increase, decrease. On one filling by the gas tank and boiler, we can normally obtain, with normal load, somewhere between 25 and 30 minutes running. We have known as much as 17 plus a guard's van to give it no effort whatsoever. Having retired, apart from having to keep the garden up, it's a full-time job and occupation to keep it all going together.
The Bure Valley Railway runs through 9 miles of wonderful countryside in East Anglia between Aylsham and Wroxham. It's 15-inch gauge narrow gauge line and has some wonderful locomotives.
Before the railway was built, there was a standard gauge line. It was finished in 1880 and it went from Wroxham through to eventually County School. This line never did very well, it wasn't profitable, and it was closed in 1952 pre-beaching to passengers. A group of local people, including the local council, decided that they wanted to encourage tourism in the area, and so the railway was created. They created a lot of footpaths on redundant railways around here, and the idea was that if they had a footpath they could also get a 15-inch gauge railway alongside it, which would also encourage tourism. The gauge of the railway was dictated by the footpath. If you take a 1.8 metre footpath out of a standard gauge line, you're only left with enough for a 15-inch gauge railway. In the original scheme of things, we did have locos that were hired from the Romney, Hythe and Dymchurch and the Ravenglass Railway. It was only when those locos came here and we found that the railway had too harsher operating conditions that we went for bigger prototypes and larger locomotives. It is not unusual to have 10, 12, 13 carriages sometimes. They are very heavily loaded, and on the gradients we have, we need big locomotives. The locomotives on this railway are all comparatively new. We have one that was built in the 50s, but all the other locomotives were built in the 1990s. Beaver 7 is a half-scale copy of a ZB locomotive that is a class of Indian locomotive. It was chosen because by choosing a prototype like that, we ended up with a beefy locomotive that was very large for its size. There'd been a lot of trouble trying to run the railway with the hired-in locos from Romney and Ravenglass. They were barely adequate for the line, and the management at that time were looking for a really beefy loco, and we ended up with a ZB type loco. The locomotive that you've been having today running our special train, which is Wroxham Broad, that loco had a very checkered career. It was built originally as a diesel outline loco. It had a Peugeot diesel and a hydrostatic transmission in it, and it ran for a long time under the name of Tracy Joe. Somebody saw it and realised it would make a very good steam loco, and it went to Winston Engineering, who put a boiler in it, connected up all the parts, and we now have a very useful light loco. Number 10 Mark Timothy was built by Winston Engineering. It was done as a outline of a County Clare type loco, I believe it was, but it was not very well finished, and it had to go back to another manufacturer, Alan Keefe of Ross-on-Wye, and they rebuilt it totally, and it now looks like a leak and manifold locomotive. There is no standard signalling on this railway. The railway is controlled basically by block working, absolute block working, but it's done by radio. In the signal box there are no levers, all there is a small computer. He has on that a mimic diagram, and he can move trains around it. It will not enable him to move trains where there's already a train in section.
Beaver 7 to control, over.
We talk to each other by wireless. We repeat the messages, and they are all radio recorded, so that if anything goes wrong, we can find out what went wrong, and if there's an inquiry, we have everything on tape. The line from Aylsham to Wroxham starts at Aylsham Station. We go through the longest and only railway tunnel in Norfolk. It then goes down to a level crossing. We cross the Mermaid Brook, which is a little river that is a tributary of the River Bure. We go for a passing loop at Brampton, and then we go on up a slight hill to Buxton. At Buxton there's another little station which is well serving the community, and we then go on down to Riverbridge, and at Riverbridge we cross the River Bure on an old Grade 2 listed wrought iron bridge. We then go along to Hobbis, where there's a nice long straight stretch of track with a loop in the middle where normally the two trains will cross. From Hobbis we climb past Hobbis Hall Farm, which is an old Jacobean building, and we come across the end of Coggeshall Runway. The line then drops down into Coltishall Poplar, where we have a station, and then we climb back from that station up towards another crossing of the road at Beela, and then we go on down to Wroxham. Last year we carried nearly 130,000 passengers, and it's been steadily increasing every year. As a tourist line, the railway's definitely proved its worth.
There you go then, the Bure Valley Railway. What a nice railway it is, and it's well worth a visit. And in fact, if you were thinking about coming to East Anglia maybe for a long weekend, there is a wealth of railways that you can visit. Of course, don't tell the missus, but there's the North Norfolk Railway, the Mid Norfolk Railway, the Wells and Walsingham Light Railway, and of course the Transport Museum at Colton Colville. And you can find out more about all of those railways on our website at www.therailwaymonthly.com.